Billionaire falls for homeless girl. Then she disappears, only to return and leave him speechless. Rain hammered against the shimmering windows of Sterling's Prime, one of the city's most prestigious restaurants. Inside, the rich aromas of fine wine and seared steak mingled with the low murmurs of the city's elite. Mason Sterling, a 32-year-old billionaire, adjusted the cuff of his custom-made suit as he excused himself from his table. The evening had been a blur of fake smiles, hollow laughter, and empty toasts celebrating successes that no longer thrilled him. Outside, the world felt more honest, raw. As his sleek black car approached, something near the entrance caught his eye. A figure, curled up by the stone wall, trying to shield herself from the downpour. Mason slowed. Homelessness wasn't unusual in the city, but this girl seemed different. Her clothes were tattered but not filthy, her posture weary but proud. When their eyes met briefly, he saw something that made his chest ache, a fierce pride battling against desperation. This wasn't someone who had given up. This was someone clinging to her last thread of hope. Ignoring the curious stares of passers-by, Mason stepped toward her. "Do you need help?" he asked. She tensed, wary, her body rigid as if bracing for mockery. "I'm fine," she muttered, pulling her coat tighter. Mason didn't buy it. She was soaked, shivering, barely standing. "You don't look fine," he said gently. She turned away, her dark hair matted to her face. "I don't need your pity." He raised a brow, intrigued by her stubbornness. Most in her situation would have jumped at the offer of help, but she wasn't like most. "It's not pity," he said simply. "It's an offer." She met his eyes, defiant yet exhausted, before shakily trying to walk away. Mason stayed still, watching her falter, one step, another, and then collapse. He moved instinctively, catching her just before she hit the ground. She was frighteningly light, trembling violently as she clung to the sleeve of his suit. Something shifted inside Mason, an emotion he hadn't felt in a long time, genuine concern. "Miss," he called softly, shaking her shoulder. She groaned but didn't have the strength to resist. Mason's jaw tightened. He had a choice: walk away like everyone else had, or care. The decision was made instantly. Turning to his driver, he ordered, "Take us to the nearest hotel. Now!" Mason carried her into the car, unaware that this single act would change both their lives forever. The first thing Sophia noticed when she woke was warmth. After weeks of cold concrete and biting winds, lying on a soft bed under silk sheets felt unreal. Blinking against the sunlight pouring through towering windows, she sat up abruptly, heart pounding. That's when the door opened. Mason Sterling entered, effortlessly composed, carrying a tray of breakfast. "Good morning," he said smoothly. "Sleep well." Sophia tensed. She was in his hotel suite. Memories of the previous night flooded back. The rain, the fall, his arms. "Why am I here?" she asked sharply. "You passed out," Mason replied simply. "I wasn't about to leave you there." Sophia eyed the tray. Perfectly brewed coffee, fresh croissants, steaming eggs. Everything about him radiated luxury, and it made her uneasy. "I don't need charity," she said, pushing off the blanket. "I never said you did," Mason replied calmly. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and noticed she was still wearing her old clothes, clean but the same. He hadn't taken advantage of her. Still, she couldn't let her guard down. "Thank you," she said firmly, "but I should go." Leaning against the dresser, arms crossed, Mason nodded. "You're free to leave," he said casually. "But before you do, I want to know something." She hesitated. "Who are you?" he asked, searching her eyes. Sophia's breath caught. He wasn't asking what she was. He was asking who she was. Forcing a chuckle, she shook her head. "I think you already know." "I don't," Mason insisted, stepping closer. "Homeless girls don't speak like you. They don't carry themselves like you." He went on, "You recognize the wine at the restaurant just by the scent. You even quoted Shakespeare in your sleep." Sophia cut him off, cheeks flushing. "I talk in my sleep," she muttered. He smirked, apparently. Frustrated, she grabbed her jacket. "I should go." Mason's voice softened. "Let me help you, Sophia." She froze. He had never asked her name. And yet he knew it. Their eyes locked, and for the first time in years, she felt truly seen. Terrified, she opened the door. "Thank you, Mason," she said, voice low but steady. "But I don't owe anyone anything." She stepped into the hallway without looking back, but she could feel his gaze lingering. Mason Sterling had wealth, power, everything a man could want. And yet, for weeks after, all he could think about was Sophia, the girl who had vanished without a trace. He searched the city, checked shelters, even hired investigators. But it was as if she had dissolved into the night. He hated how much he cared, but he understood why she had changed him. Then one evening, fate stepped in. Mason wandered into a tiny cafe tucked between skyscrapers. And there she was, behind the counter, tying on an apron, a smudge of flour on her cheek. His heart skipped a beat. He approached the counter. "Black coffee, please," he said, voice calm. Sophia froze at the sound of his voice, then slowly looked up. Their eyes met, and time seemed to stop. "You," she whispered. "Me," Mason said, smirking, for a long moment. She just stared at him, as if deciding whether to run again. But instead, she sighed, grabbed a cup, and made his coffee. "You've been avoiding me," Mason teased. "I wasn't avoiding you," she replied coolly, pouring the coffee. "I was moving on." "And yet, here we are," he said, amused. She slid the cup toward him. $3, she said flatly. Mason placed a $100 bill on the counter. She shot him a deadpan look. "Very funny." He laughed, taking his coffee. "Keep the change." Despite herself, Sophia's gaze lingered as he walked away, and that was enough for now. Mason returned every day. At first, Sophia stayed distant, taking his orders, barely speaking. But Mason was relentless. He joked, made small talk, slowly wearing her down. One day, as she handed him his coffee, she sighed. "Why do you keep coming here, Mason?" He smirked. "Best coffee in town." She gave him a look. "And," he added more seriously, "because I like talking to you." This time, she had no witty comeback, just lowered her gaze, biting her lip. Over the following weeks, their bond grew. Mason started walking her home after her shifts. They wandered through quiet streets and parks, talking about life, regrets, dreams. He learned she once wanted to be a writer. She learned that behind his polished exterior was a man feeling trapped by his own success. One evening, sitting on a park bench, Mason finally asked, "Why did you run that night?" Sophia exhaled. "Because people like you don't belong with people like me." "What kind of person am I?" he pressed. She looked at him, her eyes full of fear and longing. "The kind who could break someone like me without even trying." Mason's chest tightened. "Sophia," he said softly, "I would never hurt you." For the first time, she let herself believe him. And for the first time in a long while, she felt something she thought she had lost forever: hope. Behind the counter, Mason expected to see Sophia rolling her eyes at his usual order, but instead, someone else was there. A girl he barely recognized stood in her place. A strange uneasiness twisted in his gut. "Where's Sophia?" he asked, trying to sound casual. The barista looked up and frowned. "She quit," she said. Mason's stomach dropped. "What?" "Yeah, a couple days ago. No notice or anything, just left." She shrugged. Mason's chest tightened. Did she say where she was going? The girl shook her head. "Nope, just packed up and disappeared." Mason stumbled back, his mind racing. It didn't add up. Everything had seemed fine. Sophia had been happy, safe, settled. So why would she just vanish without a word? He tried to reassure himself that she needed space or time, something he didn't yet understand. But as the days dragged on, then weeks, her absence remained a gaping void. He searched everywhere, every cafe, every shelter, every street corner. It was like she had evaporated. Mason even hired a private investigator, someone skilled enough to track billion-dollar assets across the globe. But even they couldn't find a single trace of her. It was maddening. How could someone disappear so completely? And why did it hurt so damn much? Sitting alone in his penthouse, a glass of untouched whiskey in hand, Mason stared out at the glittering skyline. The city felt emptier now. Sophia had been the first person in years to make him feel alive again, to challenge him, make him laugh, make him want something beyond wealth and success. Now, she was gone, slipping through his fingers before he ever really had the chance to hold on. For the first time, Mason Sterling, the man who had everything, realized he had lost something he could never replace. A year passed, 12 months, 52 weeks, 365 days. And still, Mason thought about her. Sophia, the girl who had come out of nowhere, turned his world upside down and vanished as mysteriously as she'd arrived. He tried to move on, throwing himself into work, closing million-dollar deals, expanding his empire, but nothing filled the void she left behind. One afternoon, as he absent-mindedly flipped through a business magazine, his breath caught. A photo from a high-profile charity gala filled the page. A crowd of billionaires, politicians, and elites dressed to the nines. And among them, Sophia, but not the Sophia he remembered. Gone with the worn clothes, the exhaustion in her eyes. She wore a stunning emerald green gown, her hair elegantly pinned up, a radiant smile lighting up her face. She looked like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. Mason's heart hammered as he read the caption below the photo. Sophia Loren, daughter of the late business tycoon Charles Loren, makes a rare appearance at the annual Loren Foundation Gala. Sophia Loren, the daughter of one of the wealthiest and most powerful families in the country. She had lied. She had hidden the truth from him. All this time, he thought she was just a girl who had lost everything, but she had always had a life to return to, and somehow that hurt even more. Mason snapped the magazine shut, frustration and betrayal knotting in his chest. Why had she let him believe she was someone else? Why had she chosen to live on the streets when she had been born into privilege? What had she been running from? There was only one way to find out. Mason grabbed his phone and called his assistant. Find out everything you can about Sophia Loren, and get me an invitation to the next Loren Foundation event, he ordered. If she thought she could vanish from his life without answers, she was wrong. The Loren Foundation Gala was a dazzling display of wealth and influence. Crystal chandeliers bathed the grand ballroom in warm light. Laughter, clinking glasses, and soft music filled the air. Mason had attended dozens of events like this, but tonight he had only one reason to be there: Sophia. He spotted her almost immediately, standing by a marble pillar, breathtaking in a sapphire blue gown. Her hair flowed in soft waves down her back. She wasn't the same Sophia from the streets or the one behind the coffee shop counter. She was Sophia Loren, billionaire heiress. But when their eyes locked across the room, something shifted. For a split second, Mason saw the girl he had fallen for. The one who had laughed with him on park benches, teased him, made him believe in something more. Sophia's lips parted in shock as Mason approached. She barely had time to react before he was standing right in front of her, his eyes intense. "So," he said, voice low but steady, "you're not just a homeless girl after all." Sophia's breath caught. She had known this moment would come, dreaded it. But now, she found herself speechless. Mason's jaw tightened. "Were you ever going to tell me? Or was I supposed to just think you disappeared into thin air?" "Mason, she started, but he cut her off, his voice raw. "You lied to me, Sophia." He wasn't angry, just hurt, and that was worse. Sophia's hands balled into fists. "I never lied," she whispered. He let out a bitter laugh. "Really? Because I remember you telling me you had nothing, that you didn't want my charity, and the whole time you had a mansion waiting for you?" Sophia shook her head, blinking back tears. "It wasn't my life anymore, Mason." His brow furrowed. "What does that even mean?" "I left because I didn't belong there," she said quietly. "Because I didn't want to be trapped in a world that felt empty." Mason stared at her, searching her face for the truth. "You ran away," he said. Sophia nodded. "I didn't want a life handed to me. I needed to figure out who I was, beyond the money, beyond the expectations. I wanted something real, even if it meant struggling." Mason ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. "Damn it, Sophia," he muttered. Tears shimmered in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "You didn't," he said softly. "You just confused the hell out of me." A small, sad smile curved her lips. "I was confused too," she admitted. For a long moment, they stood there, the world spinning on around them. Music, laughter, conversation. While they stood frozen in their own bubble of unspoken truths. Then Mason stepped closer. "I don't care where you come from, Sophia," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't care if you have $1 billion or nothing at all." Sophia gasped softly as he took her hand. "I care about you," he said. "The girl who made me laugh, who made me feel alive, who made me want more than just power and money." A tear slipped down her cheek. He brushed it away with gentle fingers. "Tell me," he murmured, "do you still think I don't belong with you?" Sophia laughed shakily, her heart breaking open. "No, Mason," she whispered, placing her hand over his. "You're the only thing in my life that ever truly felt like it belonged." And for the first time in a long time, Sophia allowed herself to believe, to love without fear. No more lies, no more running. Just two broken souls finding their way back to each other. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Their love only grew deeper, stronger, more real than anything either had ever known. Mason, who once believed money could fix everything, now knew better. It was her who made him whole. And Sophia, who had once walked away from a life of luxury to find herself, had finally found where she truly belonged. With him. Sophia had once feared being trapped by wealth and expectations, but she came to understand that love wasn't about money. It was about trust. Together, she and Mason traveled the world, shared laughter, enjoyed quiet mornings over coffee, and stole kisses beneath the shimmering city lights. Their two separate worlds had merged into one they built side by side. One evening, under a sky filled with endless stars, Mason decided the time had come. The night was magical. Mason had thought of every detail. A private rooftop garden adorned with twinkling fairy lights, a cozy dinner under a velvet night sky. Sophia, completely unaware what awaited her, sat across the table, her eyes glowing in the candlelight, laughing at one of Mason's jokes. But Mason could hardly focus. His heart raced wildly, because this woman, stubborn, breathtaking, and impossible, had transformed his life forever. Taking a steadying breath, Mason rose from his chair. Sophia's laughter died in her throat, her eyes widening as he slowly dropped to one knee. Her hands flew to her mouth in shock. "Sophia," Mason began, his voice firm yet trembling with emotion. "The moment I met you, I didn't know your story, but I knew I could never forget you." Tears glistened in Sophia's eyes as Mason continued. "You showed me a world beyond wealth and status. You taught me what truly matters. And now I know without any doubt." He opened a small velvet box, revealing a simple, timeless diamond ring, just like her. "The only thing I want in this life is you." Sophia let out a soft, tearful laugh, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Mason, marry me." "Sophia," he said, his heart in his throat. "Be my forever." Tears streaming down her face, she nodded, laughing breathlessly. "Yes, yes, Mason, 1,000 times, yes." Mason slipped the ring onto her finger, and before he could stand, Sophia threw her arms around him, clinging to him like he was her whole world. He buried his face in her hair, holding her tighter than ever before, and above them, the stars seemed to shine just for them. The day of their wedding was bathed in golden sunlight, illuminating the gardens of the Sterling estate. Every detail had been carefully chosen, but nothing was as breathtaking as Sophia herself. She walked down the aisle wrapped in lace and silk, her hair falling in soft waves, her eyes shining with pure happiness. Mason stood at the altar, breathless, knowing in that moment she had never looked more beautiful, because now she was his. Guests rose to their feet in awe as Sophia made her way to him. With every step, memories flickered before her. The rain-soaked night they first met, the stolen moments with coffee and laughter, the times he had fought for her even when she tried to slip away. Now, she was walking into forever. When she reached the altar, Mason took her hands, strong, steady, promising. The officiant began, but Sophia barely heard the words. All she could focus on was Mason, his touch, his love, his unwavering presence. "To you, Mason Sterling, Take Sophia Loren to be your lawfully wedded wife." Without hesitation, Mason answered, his voice clear and certain. "I do." "And do you, Sophia Loren, take Mason Sterling to be your husband?" Sophia's heart overflowed with emotion as she looked into Mason's eyes. Every fear, every struggle, every moment of doubt melted away. "I do," she whispered. As they were declared husband and wife, the crowd erupted into cheers. But Mason didn't wait for permission. He swept Sophia into his arms, kissing her deeply, passionately, without a care for the watching world. Tears and laughter mixed between them as they kissed, and when they finally pulled apart, Mason whispered against her lips, "Forever, Mrs. Sterling." Sophia's heart swelled with joy as she whispered back, "Forever." Later, during the reception, while music played and laughter filled the air, Mason and Sophia stole away onto a quiet terrace. The afternoon sun kissed the world in gold as Mason laced his fingers through hers. "You ready?" he asked softly. Sophia smiled up at him, feeling the steady warmth of the man she loved. "I've never been more ready." Together, they stepped forward, not as a billionaire and a runaway heiress, but as two souls who had found their way back to each other. Their love had conquered secrets, struggles, and distance, proving something truly powerful. No matter where you come from, no matter how lost you feel, true love always finds its way back. They had learned that love isn't about wealth, status, or appearances. It's about choosing each other every single day. And as Mason and Sophia walked hand in hand into their future, their love became a testament to the truth that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin in the most unexpected places.